welcome to another episode of the Great Work Launchpad. And today is Wednesday, June 11th, 9 p.m., right on time as usual. And hey Theo, here is the Video Ninja link. And today's episode, so this is the Great Work Launchpad, episode 8, Shadow Work, Part 6, and Stop Lying to Yourself, Part 2, continuation of last week's. And just want to mention that the Great Work Launchpad is a place to help people get launched into the great work. And as the image shows, you can interpret it as helping you launch up, but also in maybe Mark Passio's fashion, we could eventually get to helping to light a fire under your ass. And the image aptly represents that, I find. So it's a launch pad to help launch you up, but also to get the fire ignited within you, the fire of care. And maybe to light a fire under your ass to make you move. Maybe we'll get into more vitriolic motivation later on in the series. So there's a Telegram group, but if you want to contact me or anything, nobody's there. You can just contact me from my site. And the top left, there's a contact button, and fill out a form. You can ask questions, or if you want help, I can assign you homework and get you started into this and see how you want to get done. But we got people in here that are just in the video ninja. I was talking. I got some people joining. And all right. There's one. And a 2. Hey Derek. Hey Brendan. How's it going?
Bonjour.
Howdy. How's it going?
All right. So, I guess that's good for my intro. People can come on and, if you want a forum to present something, present a topic, talk for a few minutes, or join our discussion on the topic we're presenting, or you could read an article you wrote or something, and help you get used to things. That's one thing I was thinking of earlier today is people they come into contact with someone. So for example, there was like Mark Passio, and he had a radio show, and people would call in, and there's sometimes, might happen a few times, but a caller calls in and is like, yeah, they'd like to collaborate. So people, to get started, they want to do it with someone. They don't have the confidence to do it on their own. So this is what the Great Work Launchpad could help as, is like, if you want to collaborate with people, you could come in and start small and then build yourself up to have the confidence to do it on your own. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, last week there was a lot of bullshit in the chat. So if you're not coming to pay attention to the content and you just want to start arguments with people or have arguments with people, well, don't. Go argue with them somewhere else. Don't argue with them in the chat here. And if you're going to be in the chat, we'll talk about the topic and make suggestions on the topic or something, or ask questions or provide more information. But yeah, don't be if you have a beef with someone, go have a beef with them somewhere else and not here. That's my main point. Okay. So last week we talked about more the causal factors. We could look at them and stop lying to yourself. So it was, tell yourself the truth, even if it hurts, even if it makes you look bad, and tell others the truth instead of deceiving them, even if it makes you look bad, even if they won't like you. It's touchy ground, but I'm talking about more the important quality truths and, about core concepts or instead of being afraid to tell someone something because they're not ready to hear hard truths because of how, like, you can just say general truths of these philosophical concepts from a causal level and not even associate with them. But because people will be able to reflect upon the concept and see how they're failing or not aligning with it, they're going to view it as an insult and be offended. So that's what I'm saying is, you don't have to make it personal. You don't have to say, like, you did this and da 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 da. Like, you can, and that's probably not going to go well. But if you speak in general things and let people take in the information that's not coming from an egoic defensive perspective, then they'll be more likely to receive it, even though there's that likelihood where they can automatically associate the concept with their own behavior and then try to reject it because of that ego defensive behavior. But it's one step removed from making it directly about them, and you're just talking about the generality that can apply to their behavior, but you're not specifically mentioning their behavior. So anyways, there's all these nuances of how to do this, but I'm more talking about, speak of the truth, the moral truth in general, and then they can absorb it and not be as defensive about it as opposed to saying, like, you're doing this and you're failing that way and you're not doing that. Well, speak of them in general, and they'll be, if they associate with it, they'll associate with it on their own rather than you triggering them and triggering their ego defenses. So you can tell them things even if it hurts, even if they'll get offended and they'll not like you, but you're talking about core philosophical concepts and not trying to make it about them, even if it can apply to them. So that was one thing. And another thing was that there is truth, that we talked about solipsism, that there is right. You can't just make up whatever you want to be the truth. And there was also, we got into cognitive dissonance. I showed my chart and justifications of wrongs and excuses and denial and rejecting truth and the importance of admitting you're wrong. And what was the other thing? Yeah, cognitive dissonance, and to be and live authentically. This is what it's getting down to, right? Is to try to be authentic and live authentic because you're aligning to moral truth. And so those were more the general causal aspects, non-specific to like any aspect of morality in general. And today we're going to get more into stop lying to yourself about ending evil. And so that's going to be more the effect of, what you're doing about ending evil and, being honest with yourself about how effective you are and working on that. So before I get into the points, I just wanted to get some definitions down, So Mark Passio is the one who came up with the term, I should go to a different view there, 1 second. Came up with the term, the great work, or the true great work, because I think in like alchemical philosophy, there is the great work, which is pretty much just about the internal work. So that is the great work that everyone can do. And then Passio termed the true great work, which had to do with moral truth and ending immorality, hence ending slavery, ending evil in the book, and the end of all evil. Well, the ultimate goal is to end the enslavement, because that's what it is. That's what man's law is enslavement. So I usually just refer to it as the great work. I don't talk about it as just the personal alchemical process of yourself as the great work. So I just refer to the true great work as just the great work. And that the goal is to end slavery, as Passio has here on a slide and in many other places as well. The goal is to end slavery, end evil. So if we're talking about ending slavery, well, what does that mean to end slavery? Well, that means that, you have to know what slavery is. And slavery, as I've defined it here, is a false claim of ownership, which is a theft on another's rightful property. A society of slavery is when there is an accepted, widespread, and persistent or repeating claim of ownership upon others. And that's what the major aspects of the government do with taxation and prohibition and licensure, is they're making false claims of ownership upon your labor and demanding that you give them things. And if you don't, then they're going to make more false claims of ownership, such as put you in a cage, and then if you resist that and defend yourself in self-defense, then they'll go so far as to murder you. It's all different degrees of theft. And this is the enslavement system that we live under. And so that's knowing that what the great work is about this aspect of ending slavery that's widespread in society, that's ingrained in society. And so that's what it's about. So if you're doing work, if you're doing content or you're talking to people, but it doesn't have to do with that ultimate goal, then you're not actually doing the true great work, the one great work, however you want to term it. Yeah. So you could be, in what you're doing, you could be telling yourself that you're a good person when you aren't, because you're not working to end evil. So people could be doing many other things, and some people do works related to truth and occulted truths or hidden truths, maybe ancient history or whatever other thing, talk about the alien cover-up or whatever. But if it's not actually working to end evil, then it's not the true great work. So it could be the work to spread truths that do have importance, but they're not the goal of ending slavery, because that's what the goal of the true great work is. So you might be doing a great work, but it's not the great work of ending evil. So it depends on how you want to define what you're doing. So one last thing, I'll bring up an infographic, and then we could go through more points, and I'll let you guys jump in. So this is from my morality presentations, just so people have more of an accurate understanding of what I'm getting at. Is in the great work, as I've defined it here, to be a truly good person, that's the wisdom of right action, and using what you know to end evil, as I termed it, morality level 2. So you can have two levels to this great work. So the lower level that most people engage in, you go online on Rumble or whatever, YouTubers and Odyssey or whatnot, and all over the place. Well, in the alternative truth movement or freedom movement, mostly you have people working at that number 1 level, which are temporal particulars. And this is the lower aspect of that great work, to try to end evil. And that's where you're helping people become aware of evils, the who, what, where, when. These are the problems. And we can talk about problems until the end of time. We can describe our prison till the end of time. There's an endless supply of ongoing falsity. Every day, there's more immorality that's being created. There's more deceptions. There's more wrong. And this is talking about the people that are doing it and the events that are happening. So it can be in the past and the present occurrences. And all you're doing is describing problems, the plane of effects. And this isn't needed to know. You need to know this in order to know there is a need for a solution. Because if you're not even aware there is immorality, then what are you going to care about a solution for immorality? So it's important at a certain level, but then people just stay stuck there. And people who consume content get stuck there. People who engage in content creation, they go there. And why do they go there? Because it's easier. Because every day there's something you can talk about. There's just this happened, that happened. Well, you can just talk about that, and there's your content. There's so much shit happening every day that you can make an hour show every day and talk about what happened. You can probably do 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. There's so much. And But this is a lower level. And the higher level is number 2 here. When you're talking about eternal universals, and that's the how and why to end evil. It's not becoming aware of the evil that's around us, that's happening now or happened in the past. This is how and why. What's happening now and what happened in the past happened, and this is getting at solutions. Instead of focusing on the problem, you're focusing on the solution. And that's the eternal truths of consciousness functionality, hence know thyself, the importance of that. And that's psychology and philosophy and morality, natural law, the ideas, and create. The goal is to create the understanding of how to create or destroy freedom, how to create or end evil, the real solutions, the real power to change, operating from the plane of causes. And to tie them both in, the particulars, that first level reflects the universals, because the universals are contained within them, these eternal universal truths. But people lack the understanding of these universal truths of moral truth. And that is what is required to have true freedom, to have the true good. And that's the ultimate goal of the true great work. It's not to do the first level. The first level is only so people can become aware that there are problems that need a solution. And the second level is where the solution's at. As I said, and as Passio said, you can describe the prison as much as you want, but you're not getting out just by describing the prison. So most of everything out there is focusing on the problem in the truth or freedom, whatever movement and community. That's what they're focused on. So just wanted to get that those definitions up, and if anyone wants to jump in, and go right ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in because a lot of the points you had brought up, how I had actually had written down, about individuals who are lying to themselves about, doing the required and necessary work, that we are talking about. And of course, when it comes to the true great work, how, like you mentioned, it's about knowing the why. Why is it that we are still in these conditions, and how is it that we can get out? So, without those, two fundamental, answers, then if you're not putting that back out into the world as far as moral education, like in a formatted way, then sadly you are, still not involved in the higher forms of, doing this true great work. And the thing is, just be honest with yourself. Just because you join groups that are associated with individuals, that doesn't mean that you are, doing the true great work. Just because you, share memes on social media, like doesn't mean you're doing the true great work. Just because you talk to people, like face to face, other coworkers or, family members, I'm not saying that there isn't some level of positivity with all of those things, but we're talking about, you know, getting down to the true moral education, part of it, to actually end evil and end, this man-made suffering by changing the conditions, by changing the way we think, so we can have higher states of elevated, consciousness. So that's really what it is all, all about. So great points.
True indeed. Theo's banking on you to talk about that nattylaw.com, where we kind of dropped the bomb on all these, aspects. Well, not all of them, but decent amount of arts and sciences plus music that teach the Hermetica and principles that can, people really align to that and truly integrate and embody them and live by them and apply them in real life, real fucking time, and not lie to themselves as if like, oh, I know natural law, but they're not fucking using it in real life. Shut the fuck up. Put it into action. You're not wise with the knowledge you have because you're not applying it to your actions, right? So yeah, we can all talk about these things online and this and that, but what is actually happening when things come in your face, and how are you going to react and all this stuff? Are you actually being able to walk the talk, back up, put your money where your fucking mouth is, type of thing? So yeah, and that comes from, I mean, a lot of people that are susceptible to that are the ones that are just talking and commentating on the plane of effects and not being at the root cause of the things and being able to come up on solutions and focus on that, not just talk about what millions of other people are already talking about. Like, the cat's out the bag, we already know this stuff, let's focus on solutions and getting the fuck out of the muck and all that stuff. So yeah, Kris, that was a really great intro. I like how you kind of set the tone for this, and yeah, we should definitely be focusing on the macrocosmic aspects of this. And so yeah, I could point at myself and be like, hey, Derek, are you doing enough to inform the world and all these things that need to be known for people to, apply their sovereign birthrights that are eternal, that are not man-made, that shall overthrow the man-made bullshit and all that stuff, and just not comply to any of that stuff as well? Of course, it's hard. It's a lot easier said than done. And yeah, like, what hill are you willing to die on sometimes, right? Like, if you have a car, yeah, oh shit, like there's like the insurance, and like there's the tax accrued on all these things, right? So do you want to drive around without a driver's license or a license plate and all this stuff? Or are you willing to just focus on other stuff? Who's actually writing letters to the politricians also, by the way? Not like they're going to read it and comply, because a lot of these people are infested with entities. And centuries of incest and things like that, trying to preserve their crooked ass bloodlines and whatever the fuck. Anyways, so let's not lie to ourselves and realize that, yeah, the world has been taken over by archonic influences and things of that nature. And yeah, the whole secret societies and all this jazz. Yeah, that's part of that plane of effects. Yet, what do we have at our disposal? Sorry, disposal. That will, really try to not try, but actually flip the script. So there's a good amount of stuff. Theo, what you got on that, or just anything?
Yeah, appreciate you, Derek. Always bringing that fire. Right on. Yeah, and that nadilaw.com is a good place to go to after you go to evolveconsciousness.org. You can check out Nadilaw for some extra goodies on that Nadilaw. So yeah, but yeah, for not lying to yourself, I think I said most of what I had to say on the topic in the previous episode. But one thing came to mind to like how to access that proper self-knowledge and self-realization in terms of purpose, in terms of right action and true will and all that. I think that requires a lot of meditation, which is a form of shadow work. So really tuning into your body, into your mind, not being in the mind, or not even being mind, like being outside of your mind in a way, like just being pure consciousness, pure awareness, and then seeing what your mind does, and what your body does, and what is the whole, what kind of chemistry is going on there. Is it like is it boiling up and like hella poisonous, or is it actually a sweet and lovely brew that you want to drink all day and share with everyone else? So
Real
think about
quick,
your
you're talking
internal.
about being the objective observer, right? When you're talking about like being out of mind or whatever, like just trying to pull back and look at things objectively within yourself, or is that what
As
I'm
much
getting
as
at?
you possibly can, right, at the moment. So yeah, and that metaphor about that internal chemistry, I think, is also a good way to look at it as well. Think about, yeah, how energetically, what's your state, and what are you projecting to other people and from other people and all that stuff. Like, because that usually you will find that there's a lot of falsities going on, and at first you will not recognize them as falsities because you're already calcifying those falsities. So it seems like that's just reality for you, but actually there's layers and layers of falsities that you have to scratch and break apart and break through. So that's what you find through doing proper meditation work. So that's something that is not talked about in the natural law community, but I think meditation, or at least not enough. It is talked about, it's not enough. That I think meditation is a very necessary prerequisite to doing that self-shadow work, which leads to actually doing the proper, true great work.
All right, I'll continue down the list. So yeah, the first one I had was, people telling themselves that they're a good person, or thinking that they're a good person, believing they're a good person, but they haven't reached that level of trying to end evil. So they aren't truly a good person, as I mentioned, as I showed on that last image. This one, at the top, it's the great work. This is how you become a higher, truly good person. And people can tell themselves, oh, well, I'm not doing it because, oh, well, I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the time to do it, or, any number of excuses that Passio's gone into in, I think it was like 243 or something, where he did like a comparison of the pros and cons, which we can do later on. I have it on my list as something that we can do as well, as a refresher to remind people. So there's all these excuses for people not doing the work, and they still want to think of themselves as good. So you can be like a lower level good, but you're not truly a good, like Passio says, a capital G, capital B good person. And they're not getting involved in the battlefield. They're not getting involved on the playing field, whether it's a sport or a war. And so they're just making excuses for not doing it. And they'd rather take their time and their attention and put it towards what they selfishly want to put it towards, rather than sacrificing that and putting it towards this goal of the great work to end evil, to end our enslavement that we're doing to ourselves, essentially, collectively, in the aggregate, according to the law of freedom. I'll read another one, and then I would see what everyone has to say about it. So all these excuses for not becoming a better person, right? And the next point I have here is that a lot of these things, these limitations, these excuses that people impose upon themselves, this is from a poisoned worldview, and there's a need to do some shadow work to heal that worldview. And those things, this poisoned worldview, are things that can change. It's the perception, the way, the narrative, the story you tell yourself about how the world is, or what your position is in the world, or how you currently are, what your nature is. And they're not realizing that things can change. They have this poisoned worldview oftentimes that things can't change about themselves. So they could understand what the great work is to do, but they have this limiting beliefs system where all these excuses of, oh, I don't have the time, or oh, I'm not smart enough, oh, I don't have the skills. Well, then go get the skills. Take the How to Be the True Media course. Go learn them on your own. Go learn them from someone else. Anything. All these excuses can be overcome, but people want to hold on to them as it becomes a reason to not do it, because they don't want to sacrifice. They don't want to put in the time to go learn the skills. It's always about time and attention and the effort and the dedication and the persistence. So it's not about doing it once, like, oh, I made an article, whew, there you go, I retire from the great work, or you make one video and that's it. No, it's about constancy, persistence, dedication, and you have to keep going at it. Doing it once as hard as it might be for people to even get to that point, that's easy just to do it once. The hard part is to repeat the process and maintain that effort, maintain that will, to keep your will activated towards that goal of ending evil, of ending slavery. That's the hard part, is the reapplication of the will, to continuously renew the will and keep pushing it towards that goal. Because just to do something once, like, okay, that can be hard enough to overcome your limitations, but then it's not about just doing it once. That's just the beginning. Then you have to keep doing it, and that's even harder. That's the even way harder part, that you can motivate yourself to do something once, but then it's like, shit, you want me to do that over and over and over? And like, yeah, that's what's needed to amplify the voice of truth. And people just, they can, like I've been saying, they can muster up the courage and sacrifice one time and then do it once. But then to repeat it, it's like, whew, they don't care, and they just want to go back to living their life however they want to do, or whatever they're doing. So yeah, if anyone wants to talk about that, and if not, we could keep going.
They're like, I did it once, I got the trophy, that's it, I'm done.
Great points, because that's one thing I've always like myself, is people come up with all of these excuses on, like why they can't get involved. Like, I don't know the technology. Well, it's like, well, what's preventing you from learning it? Then people say, well, I don't have the time. Okay, what's stopping you from, managing your time better? You can create some form of time management, start to manage your time, figure out, like, hey, where can I cut back? Sacrifice, time, have sacrifice, hell, an hour of sleep, have sacrifice time from this. It's just all of these, excuses. And it's like people have this, like, it's like they are incapable of learning something new. And it's like that creativity in their mind is dead, because they can't even come up with a new idea to try to, think themselves out of the situation. And therefore, how they can never really get involved as far as, how doing this kind of work, because it's, well, I'm incapable of doing this. I'm not adequate at this. I don't have the money for this. Well, then it's like, okay, what's the barrier that's preventing you from getting to that goal? So, we get back to problem solving. These people don't really know how to problem solve, and they have like this childlike mentality. And it's like, well, because I don't know how to do nothing, I'm just throwing my hands up in the air. I'm not going to try to figure it out. Like, I'm not going to try to learn. I'm not going to try to read. I'm not going to try to, like, go through the necessary steps to try to, figure out why, there's a roadblock that is preventing me. And then too, yeah, the repetition. Just doing something once, you're not going to, remember it. So yeah, you may create a slide, you may create a presentation. You got to do it like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 plus times just to, just to get somewhat decent at it. But you're talking about, like getting better at a craft, like mastering a craft. So you want to, like you want to keep, using, these skills as much as possible, so you get better and better at it. And with repetition, that's the best way. So yeah, you're not going to do this stuff, once, because you don't really learn stuff off, like off doing something once. You have to, do it multiple times and get it programmed and conditioned, like within, within the mind. And the more and more you do it, you get better at it.
Hell yeah, repetition, and get those reps in, just like someone would be working out at the gym and all that stuff. And hey, as we mentioned, like last month, how to use your time wisely. You listen to good stuff, when you're in transit or working out or whatever. And yeah, take your time to have those powerful moments of and in silence as well, because there's a lot of proper gnosis that you can dig deep from within, my friend. And sacrifice, yeah, Brandon, for sure. How much time and stuff and money have we sacrificed just to, put off, working full year round stuff and like quelling that so we can kind of hone in on putting out more content and refining our arts of the craft. And yeah, with what you expanded on and evolved into with your 24/7 live stream, like fuck man, like there's not a whole lot of folks doing that. So yeah, much respects to you. And so I hear what you're saying, everyone, with the one-offs and all that. There's a lot of examples we can pull from that. And how many people have referenced, is it Jeremy Locke, who was the author of End Evil, The End of All Evil, the book? Has he produced anything after that? And this is not a knock on him. It's just a question, kind of in context. So if someone is just going to write a book, it's fucking monumental. It wasn't even like 100 pages, I think. He could have followed up with more. He could have been taken out, though, at the same time. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate and all that stuff. Brandon, looks like you want to say something. I'm not criticizing the guy at all, but, I'm just saying, like, we have to include all the spectrums of, people just putting out one thing and then taking a giant leap back type of thing. So there's aspects I wanted to mention with, like people have this running dialogue going in their head and like they rationalize things to their bias or whatever level of consciousness they're at and this and that, and whatever level of self-mastery that they have, that would dictate, the degree of any kind of self-deception, right? And for whatever reason, why do we fall into self-treason and all these things, right? It's not the right season any time of the year. Let me just make that clear. But here's a little something for your ear on the trickster. Like you have a devil and an angel on one side. What is this, Smeagol and Gollum going back and forth and all this stuff? That would be an interesting thing for folks to kind of like look into in context, or just like think about in context of, there's like, we are our worst enemies. Have you defeated your own worst enemy? Have you made, like, I wouldn't say like make friends with it, but conquered it? And like, it's kind of like, you're confronting your dragon, your shadow ego and stuff. Are you able to grab control and ride that as if it is part of you and it's integrated and you're off and you're taking flights and you're reaching new heights and that kind of stuff, leveling up, if you will. And that's can be part of that, shadow work outcome of the Phoenix Rising as well. So it has to come from a lot of repentance as well, and deep meditation, reflection, as you said, Theo, and really just rolling it back. Like you have the Rolodex of memories in your mind. At what time and place were you in alignment, and what time and place were you not? And how can you kind of course correct so that the future of your life and, having your more clarity of consciousness in real time, like in the moment, like you learn from your past mistakes and you're applying it, right? And so, bringing it back to, creating content and not lying to yourself and saying like, oh, I don't have the time for this, or like, oh, this is too hard, or like the learning curve, or this and that. We can make all the excuses we want to and stumble on the starting blocks of many things. Yet, we got to start somewhere. It's not the hardest thing in the world. Like, have you all done like some manual labor? That's some tough shit. Like this type of stuff. Like, come on, like. Anyways, I'm not gonna tail off on some rambling stuff. Back to you, Kris. Thanks.
God damn it again. And I had just checked it before and it was not. I don't know why this shit keeps getting muted. So annoying. Yeah, it wasn't muted here. Maybe I checked it on that one. Yeah. Let's see.
That's another reason to come join the show. It's never muted inside the show.
Yeah, but there's a limited amount. I can only have 4 people, I think, in the Video Ninja. So far, it hasn't been an issue because it's not a popular podcast I have. It's not a popular series, so it's not a problem. But yeah, there's like a limit of 4. So right now we're at 3, and I don't count as the 4th one. But yeah, I was saying that people aren't interested in learning about deeper philosophical topics. They have all the sports, all the movies, the TV shows, the concerts, hanging out with their friends, or playing video games, or going to clubs, or there's so many things out in society that you can go learn how to dance, or learn how to do this, or go learn how to do pottery, who knows what. But there's like so much you can do, and deeper philosophical thought is not what they're interested in. What they're interested in is anything but that, pretty much. And what I was saying lastly was that that's a failure from my view of parenting, because the parents are not raising them because the parents themselves are not raised in consciousness. And only when you're raised in consciousness and you understand this importance of these eternal truths, doing the great work of self-knowledge, learning about the capacities and qualities of consciousness, psychology, important philosophies such as moral truth. And all this works towards healing yourself to heal the world, doing the work on yourself so that you can do the work of ending evil. So they're not raised, and they're not raising their children, and they're not interested in, or they might be interested in deeper philosophical thought, but they're still infected with moral relativism. Because, there's like one caller that called into Passio's show years ago and was like, yeah, I joined like meetups, and one was like one group was like in a cafe, and there were like philosophical talks, and it was called something of Socrates or something like that. And he would go, and he was there for like 6 months, and he was trying to get them to understand objective morality, but they were all moral relativists, and they were subjectivists, and like solipsistic, and they would always come up with excuses to defend like government and other things. So they couldn't even agree on they couldn't even understand and wrap their heads around foundational principles. Now, maybe the guy wasn't explaining it as well, but regardless, let's just assume he was. And they're just left brain so stuck in the rigidity of like, maybe their skepticism or whatever, but this, we could call it pseudo philosophy. It's like, oh, we'll talk about Aristotle, and we'll talk about the Neoplatonists and Plato, and, we'll talk about whatever, Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. What are these? What's that term for all those people there? Anyways,
the Pantheon?
No, that's popular on YouTube to be
the Stoics stuff?
Stoics, that's it. Yeah,
Stoics.
Stoic. That's super popular on YouTube. There's like all these Stoic channels and everything.
A little too popular, right?
Yeah, but they don't actually get into objective morality. They don't get to the deepest deep, that, like, symbolically of the demon and the dragon layer, where you're gonna ride it, like you were saying, Derek. They're not riding the dragon, which is doing that deep work on themselves. They're doing like this like, I don't know, candy pop philosophy. Like, you have pop psychology. Well, it's like pop philosophy, I guess. It's what's popular.
Yeah.
But they're not going deep enough. And yeah, if anyone wants to add more to that, but I'll just add the next point here that we could also talk about. I had the importance of detaching from identifying or overvaluing things like systems, organizations, groups, or material around you, or money, or even family, the family connection, or a community connection. You're making them valued as more important than truth. So that's one of the barriers that people have, even when you try to talk about things in general, of these we got another person coming in. Holy crap. Right. Let me try to figure that out. I'll let you guys bounce around that while I figure out how to add someone else here. That's the first time.
Yeah. I want to just say real quick, because you said that he went to that meeting for like a meetup for like 6 months, and he couldn't convince anyone about objective morality and natural law. I think I'd really doubt that he was really doing a good enough job. Honestly, I mean, like, because those are like foundational principles that everyone can understand and deep inside want to understand. This is that proper foundation for a proper life, in a way, right? Like, there's better way to say it, but try my best here with my Israeli background and all that stuff. Anyway, yeah. So, like, one thing that I also wanted to bring the point of is that charisma is needed, right? So, like, why all those falsities and all this government stuff is so popular is because the people propagating it are super charismatic, unfortunately. And people are much more attuned to those kind of things, like energetically, charisma, like confidence. Those things are much more powerful than logic, unfortunately. Like, you can present the logic to people all day every day, but if you ain't got that proper charisma, proper confidence, you ain't penetrating their fields, so they're just gonna be stuck at whatever they're already stuck on.
Well, just real quick, because like the media can manufacture charisma for people. I mean, like Joe Biden. I mean, like what kind of? I don't see a single ounce of charisma in that guy. Like, well, we said, like, come on, man, and he wears sunglasses. Like, big fucking deal. Like, a billion people have done that before. Like, over and done. Like a billion times already. Like, fucking, who gives a shit? But yeah, I know what you mean. But the the goldfish attention span is what people are getting conditioned towards, and so folks like having these roundtables and that kind of thing, and like doing the proper learning process. Like Brandon Spencer talks about all the time, of like these things take a lot of time, and it takes time to learn about it, go through the trivium process, integrate it into your soul, weed out the bad stuff beforehand, right? And then, act from there, from those places of truth, and don't fucking lie to yourself about it. Like you're fucking doing it and you're not, right? So, yeah. What's good, Jerry? Oh, and if Kris, I don't know if you get a notification if anyone wants to jump on, but the space is full. I'll jump off. All right, just put that out there.
Something I forgot to mention earlier, because Chris brought this up about the lying to yourself, of saying that I'm a good person, or believing that I'm a good person, or so and so is such a good person. And that's something that I hear help a lot from people. And my question to them is, help define your terms. Like, what does good mean? And of course they can't define that term. So then how can you say that you are good, or this person hell is good, if you have no base measurement, hell, no concrete her definition to to measure this individual by. So like, so how can you say that? That's the lie. Right there is saying that I am a good person, when you are still believing in slavery. You are still supporting evil. You're not doing anything to stop it. You're not doing anything toward the advancement of freedom. So I always ask this individual to start asking those her questions. Does a good person support slavery? Does a good person support evil? Does a good person support the government? And then, they start to, hopefully start to connect the dots, because that's one of, how the main things is, like, even people who may know some of those, have level one truths that Kris was talking about, like on the conspiracy realm, like that's where a lot of people get stuck at, and thinking that like that's the end all, be all. But yeah, we have to go deeper. And then too, how you talked about how philosophy is like thrown on the back burner. Like we literally live in a society that hates wisdom, that hates true intelligence, that hates knowledge. Like there is a hatred for it, you know, like true knowledge, true gnosis. People literally don't care for it. Literally don't care. Think it's worthless. Because why do you need that when you could just look at a screen and it tells you what to do? So why do you need to know how to read and use your imagination and true intelligence and like knowing how to problem solve? Why do you need to know what's morally right and correct in reality when you have a screen that can tell you how to do all those things? But yeah, philosophy, and even the ones who say they like have philosophy, there is a very like solipsistic and more relativistic, mindset that like even controls, like how the mainstream, philosophers now, like or anyone, like who's talking about it from like a college level. How a lot of them are, spewing out this, this satanic mentality. And a lot of them will never even, mention true objective morality and like get to like the core principles of, like what we are trying to bring to the table. It really is Sean. It really is Sean.
All right. Sorry. Um, yeah. Well, to also go back to a previous point, we mentioned about like sacrifice. I think when it comes to doing the great work, it's never a sacrifice, or at least the way I kind of define sacrifice, like just like discarding or like uh, letting go of something that is useful for the benefit of something different or something. Um, maybe that's not the most proper definition. Anyway, what I'm trying to say with that is to put your energy and time and your life force to the system is always that negative sacrifice. Okay, and doing the great work is not really a sacrifice. It's just liberating yourself and the world. So I think that's a better and more proper way to look at it is to get into the craft of doing the great work and doing that self knowledge, self gnosis work, and all that stuff is like a liberation. There's no real sacrifice in it. It's always a liberation thing to do. And I think to really get into that proper craft, you first must liberate yourself. Otherwise, you don't have that time, that mind for it. So that's why, people they are not liberated enough to get into those philosophies, into the stuff. They are stuck in that, doing what they're told. They're a slave inside their own system, inside their own, life. To inside their own mind, they're a slave. So they cannot even break free to become a little bit more abstract, a bit more, um, wondrous and curious and experimental with their life to actually get into those higher understandings and stuff like that. They're stuck in a loop. They're like in the hamster wheel of like do, doing what they're told, doing what they're telling themselves, and believing what they're telling themselves, and yada yada yada.
There was a question from someone. I'll let you guys answer. What's the difference between consistency and discipline?
I'll just go off the top. You can be consistent in anything and be undisciplined with that. You know, you can be consistently fucking things up and being consistently unconscious and this and that. Yet you can be consistent with your discipline. Being disciplined is just being checking yourself all the time, holding yourself accountable, being responsible for your thoughts, emotions, and actions. And so it starts from the mind, mentalism, right? So that's regulated. And then step down, the emotions are regulated and the energy in motion is regulated. So your actions are congruent with that, in alignment, right? So that is proper discipline. And to have that consistency of that is great. So I see consistency as, you know, kind of like the frequency of how frequently is someone working on that discipline, I guess, you know. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but yeah, I think Brandon knows better than me.
We have a saying in softball, like one can be consistent, but one can be consistently wrong. So
Voila.
yeah, you know, so like it's like when you're talking about a discipline, you know, you usually was a disciple in like some form of teaching, some form of craft, you know, like some form of skill, some form of, you know, like artwork, you know, something was being, you know, honed. So it was like a means of, you know, like, you know, like getting better. So, you know, like if you are going to be disciplined, then it's almost like whatever your craft or whatever your, you know, like whatever you're doing, it's like a tool and you want to sharpen and hone it and get better at it. And, you know, like not abuse it. It's more like a conscious realization of, you know, like how to correctly use something. So your discipline, you know, like almost like that, you know, that great sword fighter, you know, he can use his sword, you know, for, you know, for defense, and he chooses, you know, to use it for defense, but he's also skilled and can use it for offense. But it's a choice that requires discipline because there's a lot of external, you know, like influence, you know, that can trigger one, or, you know, like if one is not emotionally, you know, freaking disciplined, then can do wrong things. So yeah, that's what I would say about consistency and how discipline.
Yeah, good answers. Um, yeah, so the last thing I said before I added Jerry was detaching from identifying and overvaluing things, making them valued more than moral truth. So then you're going to sacrifice the moral truth in order for those things that you identify and value more in your life. So I just wanted to come back to that because it's an important thing that people might not think about. All the systems, your job or the monetary system or government especially, or the medical system, anything, any organization or group, or the house you have, or anything you have, there's all these things that people will do that compromise themselves. So yeah, sometimes you do need to compromise, and we went through that. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, I forget, but we did talk about compromise at some point. And even family. So your family, and this is one that people will, you know, I forget, you know, blood is thicker than anything or whatever, these things about family. And so they remain attached and loyal to their family above principles of morality. So then when it comes to their family member who could be a police officer or working in the government, and they could know the knowledge that we're talking about, but they won't try to give them these concepts of what morality is and how working in government is not doing good in the world. It might be doing some good, but you're doing it at the expense of doing evil, so you can't do good by doing evil. And so they value their connections, their identification with people in their lives more than the moral truth, so it's going to restrict them in their speaking of the moral truth to those around them. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was this belief that other people have things. So when you're lying to yourself about ending evil, you say, well, I don't need to do it. This is another excuse that, I could never do it as good as Mark Passio. I could never do it as good as name your person. And, or like I've talked about in my Law of Freedom on karma, that, the universe has it. The universe is inherently ordered, and everything will balance out. So everything comes back to the people doing evil. So it'll all work out, and good will win in the end. So the universe has it. Other people have it. It's all going to work out with good and freedom winning in the end, without me or others getting involved, because evil doesn't win, except evil is winning. Evil does win, and evil can be stronger than good. So you can think that you're fighting for freedom, but you don't even know how to create freedom. This is another aspect of how people are lying to themselves, is that all these people they identify, again, we're talking about an organization or group, they're identifying with the freedom movement or the truth movement, and they consider themselves as part of that. And they think that they're doing something to propagate freedom, but they're not actually doing it, because they don't even know how to create freedom, because they don't even know how to define freedom and what freedom actually is in the first place. So they're living in an illusory construct of what reality is, in a false perception. So how can you fight for freedom in that case when you don't know how to define it and you don't know how to create it? So how can you fight for it? You can't fight to have something you don't even know what it is or how to create it. If anyone wants to go for
When you was talking about, people putting families and, like career, stuff over, like moral truths. Have I had the, like Terrence McKenna going off in my head talking about culture, because like that is, the culture and the seeds that get implanted, at such a early age, like you've got to get married, you got to have a family, you've got to have a career. Not saying that these things are bad, but if those relationships aren't even aligned with moral truths, then those relationships, like won't ever even last long. So, you still have to have a level of principles, even in those, have relationships in order for those to be, how long lasting. So yeah, those seeds being planted are overriding, true moral principles, which help build, help foundations. So then therefore that's why we see all these relationships, have being, have destroyed, because we're putting career, have marriage, time with loved ones over that true, sacrifice, over that true, how giving up, paying, how true attention to doing this kind of work. And oh yeah, and then the whole identity part, because those seeds, start to turn and, start to, sprout and, shapes our identity, and that's why you see a lot of sameness, like in people, because they, you know, take upon those same seeds of, culture, and, how those seeds cultivate their mind, then they, have that same identity. And then of course that leads to the whole group thing, how dynamic. And then her last thing that I wanted to say, because the point was made about an individual, like trying to talk to a group of philosophers, and he wasn't like making much, like headway. Trying to talk to groups and trying to reach people in groups is a whole lot harder than a one-to-one, basis, because when you are in that group, there's a certain mask and a certain persona that people wear, and that whole tribe mentality. So there's a whole different dynamic, and people will rarely ever, take off that mask in the group dynamic. You have to like get them in like those one-to-one, scenarios where you can actually relate to them on the true, human connection in order for them to actually, start to take that mask off. In a group dynamic, it is extremely, extremely hard because people fear being shunned or kicked out or thrown out of the group. So that's always something, to be mindful of if you are ever going to talk to any group.
Hell yeah. Jerry, what you got on that? And yeah, like my mentors, they teach and are adamant on the importance of one-on-one mentorship and teaching and all that stuff. So yeah, spot on and confirmed on that, Brandon, for sure. And I'm gonna test the waters teaching French next semester in our new curriculum under some natural law school stuff. So we'll see how that dynamic works. But yeah, Jerry, cuidado, ¿cómo estás, amigo, en Mexico? Amigo.
I'm good. When you say natural law school, do you mean online or in person?
Yeah, it's Jerry Cabazudo. She initiated this with some others that it's
Liberation
teaching-
Academy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I heard about it. It's in
Yeah.
Florida, right?
Yeah, it's based out there. And what I'm doing is just an elective, amongst, a much more serious curriculum with the much more better teachers than myself. But yeah. C'est la vie, les amis. Yeah, but yeah, Jerry, what are your thoughts on the whole dynamic of, people lying to themselves and that kind of stuff, or, anything in recent memory of what people have been talking about? But this overarching idea of, like we need to stop lying to ourselves in order to get, past these, mental blockages or whatever to, really get into the real fucking true work, great work within oneself, first and foremost, to make it happen for the exterior, I guess.
Yeah, it's a great question. I missed the first part, so I'm just gonna basically talk off of the dome. So I mean, at least for me, I think that maybe you get so caught up in the lie you don't even realize you're lying. Like you start to believe it, and then you basically have to break out of that, and that takes work. And it's really a lack of shadow work that people are lying to themselves, really. So I think people need to check out Mark Passio's shadow work seminar coming up this year. Start doing that, really. Maybe make it a habit, a practice, right? Like a disciple. Oh, become a disciple of shadow work, doing the shadow work. So yeah, I mean, if you're lying to yourself, you're obviously not integrating truth, and no change for the better will be created. So yeah, you need to take one good look at yourself honestly and say, hey, I'm not contributing to the great work. I mean, kind of like what Kris says, like, why is that? Really go down the list, like take notes. Why is it I'm not doing this? And then how can you improve that? And yeah, just take one step at a time.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere, and the sooner you start being honest with yourself about where you're at, then you can start moving in a direction towards doing more. And that can take time, but if you don't admit it, then you're never going to take the steps to get to those higher levels of activation of doing something. So it's got to start somewhere, and the first step is stop lying to yourself and admit where you currently are, so that you can move forward towards doing more and getting over doing that work, letting go of those excuses and admitting wrong, admitting that what you're telling yourself is bullshit. And yeah, I recommend everyone watch that episode. 243 or 244 something has like a black pill and gold pill symbolism. I think it was the one before that, and then the one after that is where he goes into the pros and cons, something like that. Really good Good stuff for the shadow work. Another point I had regarding this is all these excuses, thinking you're fighting for freedom. Other people will have this. The universe has this. You're too identified with whatever organization or network you belong to or community you belong to or group you belong to. And you have all these poisoned ideas about yourself, poisoned self-view. It's playing to lose, as Passio states it. And people doing the prepper thing, and all this stuff. And, I got out of the city because, I never liked the city. I was from the country and I went to the city, and then more jobs became available outside of the city. I'm like, hell yeah, all right, let's get the fuck out because there's a lot of pollution here. So why stay in the city when you don't need to? Anyways, there's pros and cons of the city. Closer to people and things, and maybe you have better Wi-Fi and other benefits or whatever. Public transportation. And anyway, so playing to lose. A lot of people are focusing on things, putting their time and attention into things that, again, are just about my freedom, their own personal freedoms, trying to gain more personal independence, this whole self-sufficiency, whether it's, going into permaculture, homesteading, or whatever. It's not that there's anything wrong with trying to be more independent or self-sufficient. It's that is your focus for what you're going to do in terms of freedom. Your perception of freedom is going to be focused towards you yourself or your little community, and let's get more food independence. Well, what the hell is that doing to end evil? Nothing. In the great scheme of things, the problem is in consciousness, the law of mentalism, that is creating the whole enslavement system. So if all these people are becoming more self-sufficient, okay, but they're still voting, or they're still just letting things be, as I go through in my morality presentation on condoning. Is that what it was? I forget what it was, but it's near the end. It's a C word. I forget, and it's that you're condoning. The word has to do with weaving. That you're weaving. Oh, you're complicit. That's what it was. That you're complicit with it, because you can be complicit in two levels of you're partaking in it yourself, but you can be complicit in it in letting it happen. And when you're not engaging in the great work to end evil, you're not doing the moral education. You're not trying to help people heal themselves through the shadow work, to face the demons and the dragons and the serpents inside themselves, and ride them up to a new world, and slay those aspects to make themselves better, to make the world better from a moral foundation. Then you're just being complacent to let evil run amok. And that's what a lot of all this self-sufficiency stuff is. As good as it is, do that too, but people are just doing that, and then they think that yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, but you're not actually doing the true good. You're not actually working to end evil. So if you're not working to end evil and you're just going to let evil run amok, then you're not being a good person. And so this playing to lose is thinking you're going to win, thinking that the world's going to get better as you do nothing to end the evil. You're not doing the great work to try to win. The only way winning is going to happen, and that's the requirements to ending evil, the requirements to restoring true freedom, is getting that mindset, the mentalism part, to modify their behaviors. First, it has to start in the mind, and that's not going to happen if there's not enough information out there for people to be exposed to. And as much as my information gets very low views and my site can get low views, it's not about the views that makes the content. The content makes the content, and the quality of the content. And I don't know how I got some people to pay it. I have 3,700 subscribers apparently on YouTube. There sure as hell ain't that many people watching. So wherever those came from, I don't know what's happening or what happened, and then you got all the algorithm, and you got to promote your work, and you got to use the right tags or whatever, and if you swear or you do things on video, and now the AI is filtering it and doing all this stuff, and like, well, I'm still just gonna create the content on topics that I value, and if other people value them, well, they can come across it because I have a title that's descriptive of what I'm actually going to be talking about that could entice people, like shadow work or oh, I'm interested in shadow work. Oh, stop lying to yourself. Oh, I'd like to learn more about that. Um, the descriptions might have a little bit of more information that maybe the search engines catch or whatever, but that's how I'm trying to get people to pay attention to the content, is that I'm going to talk about content that I value, that I recognize is important for other people to gain awareness of in the effort to end enslavement and their morality in the aggregate scale. So that's why I do that content, and people can be interested or not interested. We talked about people aren't interested in deep philosophical thinking, so not many people are going to be interested in my content. I'm not, people were interested in Passio. I'm not a Passio. However, the charisma and all that stuff works, and character personalities. Everyone's got different personalities. So whatever floats your boat, learn what you want. Pay attention to, I'd say, go learn from people who are giving information to end evil, to end the enslavement. And maybe you can gain some knowledge. Maybe what they're talking about isn't interesting to you. So maybe what I'm talking about isn't interesting to someone. Well, I can't make them watch my content. But I am fulfilling the requirements, which is to try to amplify the voice of truth. So that's what I was getting at, is everything that can be done, is what you're doing actually going to make it possible to end evil, end the enslavement? And again, the target is the mindset of people. So if what you're doing, such as prepping or homesteading or whatever, and we're not even going to get into the animal aspect of the harm people are doing to animals when they focus on that, because it's all about themselves. So obviously they don't give a shit about the animals. But anyways, we can ignore that for now. That's obviously a big problem. But people focus on that because they're just focused on themselves. And they're not doing the requirements to end evil, is my point. They're not doing the requirements to end the enslavement. And they're just playing to lose, which makes them a loser. If you're playing to lose, it makes you a loser. So you got to try to play to win. And the way to win is to fulfill the requirements to how to restore true freedom. And that is doing the work of these eternal truths of working on the self-knowledge, the shadow work, and moral truth, etc.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna be wrapping it up soon, but you kind of touched on one last point that I had wrote down, is people lying to themselves about solutions that don't lead toward freedom. That's something that we see a lot. People throwing out all these solutions, but they don't lead toward toward the ending of slavery. But maybe that's something we can talk about in the following episode. But yeah, great points as always. Thank you for always having these talks. Thanks for always opening it up for me to join, and thanks to Derek, Theo, and of course Jerry for joining us.
Yeah, I'll just go real quick. So yeah, like you mentioned, Chris, the whole what's popular in regards to that general area of topics is more like surface level stuff. And when it comes to the real solution, to the real causes, to the real effects, or I guess effects are popular, but again, the real causes mostly. It's not very popular, and it's not only not popular. It's actually you have to go against all odds when you're making this kind of content, because the odds are stacked hella against us with those algorithms, those AIs, and I think there's even like personal tampering with some of this stuff. Like if you search Mark Passio on YouTube, the first video that comes up is why Mark Bessio is like a crazy person or something like that. And when you try to search many of the great workers, you will never find them. Like the only way I can find many of the channels of people in the One Great Work Network is to just directly enter their channel through a link or something. If you try to search for them, even their name, even their channel name, everything, it's hella buried or it's just hidden. I've experienced that multiple times. So it's pretty fucked up. So all this metrics shattering content is very much, there's a war against it. So I mean, yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. And again, you really have to go on that hero's journey to really want to be a hero that is fighting against that shadow, that darkness that is very much taking over the world. So do you want to be the hero of your own story, or do you want to be a loser in your own story? Because your life, your story, your saga, it's yours no matter what you do with it. So at the end of your life, what would you what is your feeling like? What when you're facing that Grim Reaper, that what are you gonna tell him? It's like, oh, I just did what I was told, and I just okay, well, I had a family, I was married, blah blah blah, and I didn't do anything to end slavery in the planet. I didn't do anything to end wars and suffering. I just did my best. I had a good job. I had a good wife. I have 3 children. It's like, I don't know. Is that good enough for you to end your only life on this planet? Like, I think we all incarnated here for a reason. Like when I think about it, it's like sometimes like, why am I even here? All those kind of basic questions. It's like, well, there has to be a good reason for it, and if I ain't gonna be the hero of my own story, then I might as well just give up right now, right? Like, what's the point? So yeah, so you have to get to those understandings. You have to, like Derek mentioned, you have to tame the dragon and ride the dragon. And there's not only one dragon. There's multiple dragons that you have to face. And like they say, the only way to conquer your fear is to face it head on. So just like that, you have to face head on the shadow inside of you, the evil inside of you. It's like, yeah, if you cannot defeat the evil inside of you, what you can do outside of you? Nothing. So yeah, you have to really come to terms with that. Like, really face the mirror, crystal clear, and don't be afraid of what you see. Just think it like, I'm gonna win this shit. That's what I came here for.
Oh yeah, well said, Theo. Jerry, you want to follow it up? I don't know if I can, continue after all that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I got it, dude. He was chopping up for me. I don't know if it's because there's 5 people here, but I got the gist of what he was saying. And it just reminded me of what you were saying earlier, Derek, how you want to control your basically self because we're our greatest enemy, you could say. Yeah, you got to fucking really control yourself. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say except that was great, Theo. And yeah, stop lying to yourself. I think that's all I got. Thank you for having me on, Kris. And thanks to all the other gentlemen here.
Right on, Jerry. Yeah, it's great to see you up in this spot. In conclusion, my thoughts of, wrote some things down. Not a whole lot. I don't want to, not trying to steal the spotlight or whatever. Not like what I'm going to say would do it anyways. But if you were really, truly doing the inner work and achieving results of that, you would not be lying to anyone, not even yourself or others, except draconian motherfuckers and our order followers and that kind of stuff. correct me if I'm wrong, possibly, but so kind of going back, yeah, people can pay attention to whatever the fuck they want. They're gonna reap what the fuck they sow, as y'all know. And the whole idea of people actually thinking they know something because they're into this TikTokification of information, and what a sensation. They got that instant gratification in just like a couple minutes, a couple hours, and this and that. This is fucking years of learning to do this path work and to continue. This is your life's work. All right. Take it in hand, take it in stride, take it with love. Agape, mother lovers, what's up, man? Shit, So playing to lose, don't be a fucking loser. Rise the fuck up. The fuck. We're here to hold each other large, as Mari West loves to say, and that's been such an inspiration for me hearing that from the get-go. And yeah, it takes being comfortable outside of your comfort zone. And part of that has to deal with admitting you're fucking wrong. I did that like a dozen times today, and I'm going over this with a lot of colleagues. My boss, it's a like more laissez-faire, like family type of joint. It's like a mom and pop place. It's really cool. And she checked out nattylaw.com today, and she's like, wow, yeah, Derek, this is cool. She even subscribed to the newsletter and this and that. And like we kind of go back and forth, talking about like she's down with Hermes Trismegistus and like the Hermetica and all these stuff. And so we're like relaying all these things and this and that. And like her nephew is working with us, and he's like one of the most frustrating, difficult things and challenges that I have, in the work spot of him going all, he has like he might be on the spectrum. I'll just leave it at that. And he's great. He's like with all this stuff, but it's just like, he doesn't think before he acts. And he just like, it's like, c'est bordélique, mec, c'est n'importe quoi, mon gars, mais qu'est-ce qu'il y a exactement? Putain de merde. By the way, I literally rode my bike from work, had like not even 5 minutes before you did your live stream. I finished work at like 2:45, mon ami, and then had to ride my bike uphill for real. So I feel like I've done so much. I'm not going to lie to myself. It's not enough. None of us, we've done some great works, yet it's just not enough. I'm not lying to myself. We just got to keep it going. Keep that positive, progressive energy flowing and with your manifestations in the right direction, aligned to cosmic law, objective morality and reality and all those things. So yeah, Kris, always thank you so much. That's all I got to say. Everyone else, much love and respects, and yeah, leave it at that.
I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I had 5 more things to say. I don't know if I should just end with it.
Nah, go for it. Yeah, hit it.
So yeah, or else it'll drag on to next week. Will be on the stop dreaming, fantasizing. The world is not how it is. So it's tied to stop lying, but I guess it's more specific. Sacrifice requires. Yeah, there's sacrifice required, right? We've already talked about this. And we can't have our cake and eat it too. So we can't have the time and putting our attention on other things and not fulfilling the requirements of freedom by amplifying the voice of truth to potentially reach other people. So you're going to say, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to put my time and attention on other things, but I'm also going to get the result of true freedom. And I'm going to get the result of slavery being ended. Well, it's not going to happen. So if you're not willing to sacrifice, then you don't care about creating freedom or having freedom. And this is what my presentation at Funnel 4 was about, truly caring about being enslaved. If you're not willing to do that sacrifice, then you just don't have the care activated enough in you. That fire has not grown enough. And you ultimately don't even care about yourself. I think that was the last slide. Truly care about yourself. That ultimately, this comes down to, as we talked about before, self-love and self-respect. And if you don't even have that, then you're not going to care about your own enslavement and wanting to have true freedom. So you're going to, what a lot of people do, as I mentioned before, the particulars, that level 1, lower level of knowing about things. Well, part of that is like people want to bitch about the elite or the controllers or others anywhere about doing whatever. They just want to say, oh, this person's doing that, and oh, look at this Rockefeller or this politician and that. And there's all these particulars happening every day, and even around us on the internet or in groups we belong to or whatever. You can always say, oh, this person's doing that, look at this, look at that, look at that. But
yeah, and talking about it, that's called gargling with sewage.
Yeah, if you focus too much, as Jay Parker would say, gargling with sewage, and that's not doing the great work, because I put it in that slide. I don't have it here, but yeah, I could add it. But what I'm getting at is that this one, that I put the lower level 1 there because it is necessary in that journey to do the great work and that journey to end evil. So all this is about ending evil. And those particulars is becoming aware of the evil. So you need to become aware that there is a problem in order to know that there's a need for a solution. So that's how it's important. But it's really low level, and it's really like at the bottom of the barrel in terms of great work awareness. It's not the solution. You're just becoming aware of the problem. And that's what people focus on, is just talking endlessly about the problems or pseudo solutions like, oh, well, the solution is just voting in someone better or reforming government or reforming the economic system or just crypto. And none of it's dealing with the mind aspect that leads to your behaviors. And the great work is to end the slavery of humanity. So individuals' wrongs, some people do, and exposing that isn't going to end slavery. So people around you, people in groups you belong to, in your country or your government, like, you can be aware of all that, but this is what a lot of content out there is just focusing on individuals or events, and you're not getting at the ideas, these core foundational principles and philosophy and understanding that can actually change your inner reality, to change help to change the outer reality through your behaviors as we co-create the human world that we've created, all of us together. So only the knowledge of what our slavery is and reaching the numbers to change the collective condition will end slavery. So you have to know what the condition is, but then you have to work on ending it and reaching those numbers of people who have their mindset changed, who've done that work, in order to then resist or physically engage in actions to make it stop, as we've talked about.
Yeah,
as I've talked about in the law of freedom.
I should sorry, I just want to quickly interject that doing that is gonna improve all other aspects of your life. It's not just to do the great work, because to say, oh yeah, I'm doing the great work, now I'm a true good person. That's part of it, but it's also actually gonna improve all the other aspects of your life, your relationships, your path work, your career. Most of your relationships is definitely gonna improve. Your outlook of life, and your destiny, everything is gonna manifest to higher degrees of literally getting better and better, and more proper, and it's gonna lead to happiness. It's gonna lead to serenity, and a feeling of gratitude when you wake up in the morning and when you end your days. You're gonna have that true proper gratitude, that true proper agape, which is the true foundation for everything else in life.
All right, so we can wrap it up. I know Brandon, you're getting tired there. I can see Derek must be tired too. And yeah, we're at the 10:30, so usually we end it here. If we don't end it at 10, we end it around 10:30, and we're past that mark. So thanks guys for being here. And if anyone has anything in closing to say, say it now, or forever hold your peace. Right, crickets. Sounds good. All right, thanks everyone. Next week, what did I say? After stop lying to yourself, stop dreaming,
Stop dreaming.
believing the world isn't the way it is. So it's tied into stop lying, but that one should be an hour. I don't have as many points as I had for the stop lying to yourself. So have a good night, everyone. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for paying attention and maybe learning something. And see you next week if you're interested in checking out what that's going to be about.